everyone. I am so delighted that you're joining us today. I am Gill Whitty-Collins. You probably know me as the author of Why Men Win at Work and How We Can Make Inequality History. I also work as a keynote speaker, a workshop and retreat leader, a consultant, and a coach. It's International Women's Day on Sunday, so we wanted to do something for women because, let's face it, the world is not doing much for us at the moment. And I am launching a new book, the How to Win at Work book. Why have I written another book? Because women are not winning at work, and I want to change that. As I always say, we are 50% of the world's population, intelligence, competence, leadership capability, but we are only 10% of its leadership. So my goal is very simple. I want women to have the 50% representation in the workplace that we deserve. And my contribution to help is the How to Win at Work book. It's an empowering career guide for today's working women, and it tackles all the invisible forces and barriers that hold women back in the workplace. It brings together everything that I know about how to overcome these forces, these barriers, all the insights, strategies, action plans, and exercises that I share in my keynotes and workshops and coaching sessions. I wish that I could coach and work with every single woman on the planet, and I am trying to get to as many as I can. But just in case I don't get to you, then all of the career advice is now in here. So I'll be sharing some of my career tips from the book today, but more excitingly, I've invited some very special guests to share the best career advice that they've ever had, the best career advice that they've got to give with you. There are some top experts working in the field with us here today, so I know you're going to get to some absolutely golden how to win at work tips from them. So without further ado, let me introduce you to my first very special guest. She has contributed hugely also to the book with her wisdom. She is Geeta Sidhu-Rob. She is the CEO and founder of WCORE, who do fantastic work with organizations to get them into shape on the equality and diversity front. Hello, Geeta. Thank you so much for being here.
Jill, thank you for this monster undertaking. I love that you've got a new book coming out.
Thank you. Thank you. So tell us, Geeta, of all the wise things that you know, what's your number one? What's your number one career tip that you want to share with everyone here today?
I think that awareness, it's always a balance, isn't it? With what we try and do at WCORP is to make your workplace more efficient and effective so women can bring their biology to work, which is a very core, basic, simple concept. Like if somebody has a wheelchair, you don't say you can take your wheelchair up to the door and then could you possibly drag your way through the rest of the building? You wouldn't do that. We're women, we are forced to actually not be women at work because we don't measure productivity, we measure presence at work in a completely male-dominated environment, and we say this all the time. So firstly, creating a situation where WCORP enables you to understand how easy it is to create productivity-based jobs and workplaces. On the other hand, there's also getting women to have the information and understanding of what menopause means for them and is going to mean for them. Because as you know, we only invented menopause, was it about 4 years ago? I think I'm pretty sure we didn't have it before. So I had to listen to a man say, some women go through perimenopause. And I'm like, babe, no. 100% of women go through perimenopause. And can a woman tell you about it instead? So if we understand that we start perimenopause around 35 and we tend to hit menopause around 51 to 55, we need to understand and have all the tools that we need to make our life bearable and livable in that time, because it's the single biggest metabolic upheaval any woman is ever going to go through. Everything will change. What can you do to help yourself get there? Sane, effective, still married if that's what you're doing, and still with your job if that's what you have. And honestly, both of those things should work together to make a better functioning world in which women, as 50% of the population, get to make the choices that they need to have power in their own and agency in their own lives.
It's so that, isn't it? Thank you, Gita. It's that power, and it's that being forewarned and forearmed. And obviously not everyone on the call is going to be near menopause and not thinking about it yet. And I would highly recommend put it off as long as you can. But I think it's a broader thing, actually. I know that when I was a young woman and a young career woman, there were so many things that I thought, oh, that doesn't happen to me. I don't get that. That doesn't bother me. And I really wish now that I'd had my eyes and ears open and I was studying and listening to older women about their experiences, because I would have been so much more prepared for all of this
Well,
when it actually happens.
yes and no, but that generation wasn't even allowed to talk about it. So I don't think you can even think that, because our mothers' generations, nobody was listening. So who were they going to talk to? They kind of talked to each other and suffered in silence. We're just not a generation that wants to suffer in silence. But if you think you're starting at 35, there is almost so few people that are in upper management and having impact and effect in their workplaces that aren't going through some symptom of perimenopause. We have the community of 80,000 women that will give you up to 72 symptoms, which is brutal, right? 72 symptoms without a cookie cutter solution. Your solution has to be personalized. So just think of it as a gift from Mother Nature to put yourself first.
A gift, and it's a gift from you. I think what I would say to everyone generally is not just being prepared for this, but being prepared for all the things that are going to happen in your career in the future, because it just gets, if all these career issues that we're going to talk about today haven't hit you yet, if you carry on in your career, I promise you, my love, they will. So I think it's just that general, forewarned is forearmed, I think. Thank you so much, Geeta. I am going to go now to Sophie Devonshire. She is the CEO of the Marketing Society and an author in her own right. She's the author of Superfast Lead at Speed, and has had a incredible career and incredible impact. So Sophie, we would love to hear from you about your biggest career advice, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for asking me. I think it's a brilliant idea to learn from each other to speed up our success. And the book, I know, will be brilliant too. So, best bit of advice, Gill, that I received was a number of years ago when I was suffering from overwhelmitis. I think it's quite a common disease. There's a bit of a pandemic and going on at the moment. But if you are ambitious, you want to do a lot of things. And a very good friend said to me, Sophie, darling, you can do anything. And I was like, yeah, great, thanks. You can do anything, but you can't do everything. And this is the most important and critical piece of advice for anyone who wants to lead at work, anyone who wants to just survive, not just, and to thrive. And especially for women, because we are so often asked to do so many things, and we want to do so many things personally, professionally, and make it all happen. But we have to curate and edit and make choices about it all, because no matter how much we want to, and no matter how efficient we are, we cannot do everything. So the other bit of advice was also about understanding when you're juggling all those balls, which ones are rubber, which ones are glass. So making sure you don't drop the glass ones. If you're a director in a company, you don't want to do things that are going to get you fired and sent to prison. Your family is pretty important to you, things like that. Other things, accept imperfection and remember that you cannot do everything everywhere all at once.
Oh yes, perfectionist syndrome. We should all get rid of that, shouldn't we? I think so. So many of us have it. We can talk a little bit about that later. You are so right about this, Sophie. I think, and the first book, Why Men Win at Work. You contributed a wonderful review to it. Thank you for that. And one of the things I did was interview the super 7% women, the women who have actually managed to overcome all of these barriers and all of these issues, and have actually managed to get, to those top leadership positions in the world. And the one thing they all had in common, they had a few things in common actually, but one of them was exactly this. They knew that it is not possible to be CEO at home and CEO at work. And too many women are trying to do it. Too many women are taking 80% of the unpaid work at home and still somehow think that there's going to be enough time and energy left to have a phenomenal career. You can't do it. You can't do it all. You got to choose. And they were all, either they were they'd chosen not to have kids, not to have a family, or they had a partner who was doing way more than their fair share, or they were hiring the hell out of help to do it for them. So wise. And I think it's one of the most dangerous things we do to our young girls, or we have done in the past to our young girls, is make them feel that they have to do everything. And it's breaking people. Overwhelmitis. I love that. I think I've got that right now, so I need to. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sophie. I'm going to go now to Sheila Schroeder, she has also contributed some fantastic tips to the book in the Knowing Your Value chapter. She is the author of It's Time to Talk, which has very recently been released. And she is a phenomenal keynote speaker in her own right as well. Sheila, thank you so much for being here. Give us your wisdom.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's great to be here, and it's always really joyous opportunity when I get to be in a room with women virtually or in person. So thank you for inviting me to contribute. I was thinking of a story that I'll share. When I was in my early 30s, I was hired to be head of a desk of the Asian equity desk at a big firm in New York, big wirehouse. And I had to go on the squawk for the first time when you get up on the platform and you broadcast out to your whole peer group. You're going to talk about a deal. And my very first time I get up there and my voice starts to shake. And my colleague put his arm on his hand on my shoulder, and he said, kind of whispered, "Do you need me to take over?" Because I was sweating, I was panicking a bit. And I stepped off, he finished it. And afterwards, I went up to him and I said, "Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I can't believe that happened. I felt like, oh, I'm ruined." And he looked at me. He's like, no. He said, "Take it like a man. Just go in the bathroom and throw up." And I thought, what? Like, what kind of advice is that? But what I learned, and it was so valuable because it made me understand that, first of all, it's hard for the guys too. And that it's perfectly okay to go in the bathroom and throw up because you are feeling so much stress and you're scared. And he said, it's not going to ruin you. The next time you'll be ready. And the more you do it, it's going to be fine. And coming from this, I reported to him, and he's like, "Yeah, it happens every day. Why do you think people go for drinks after work?" And I think there are a lot of healthy ways to manage stress or panic. But that piece of sort of advice made me realize that I wasn't alone. It was not unusual that other people, men and women, would feel the same way the first time they go on a squawk. And even though I got nervous, it was going to be okay, and the next time would be fine, which it was. So I really appreciated that idea of take it like a man, go throw up, because it gave me insight to the men I work with. And that it's what we do, whatever we're doing, if we're trying to achieve at the highest level, we're doing it. It's competitive. We are ambitious, and it's going to be stressful, but we're not alone. And sharing sort of that strategies and that conversation made a huge difference to me. And it's funny because I was prepping for this call and I wrote a bunch of different things down. And then I thought of that piece of advice, and it just, and I think it was one of the things that has shaped the rest of my career, in that, we're not alone when something goes wrong, and that we will recover, and there will be another day, and it's okay to be scared or nervous, etc. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. And what a generous thing for him to share with you, actually, in his vomity way. But that it is that insight, isn't it? I remember when I first got an insight for men when I was writing the first book, which is them saying, of course it's a performance. Of course we don't always know what we're doing. Of course we're nervous. Of course we're this. There is an element of having to just power through it, and it's so powerful, as you say, when you realize that everyone feels that, and really important as a woman to know that men feel that, and no matter how confident they may seem on the outside, it's all still going on. Love him for sharing that with you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sheila, and thank you again for the amazing contributions to the book. I'm going to go now to our mutual friend, Britt Lindner, who has a fantastic quote in the book. She's co-founder of Ensor Partners and another absolute force of nature. Britt, thank you for being here. Give us your best career advice.
Thank you for having me, and I'm honored. I echo Sheila. I'm honored to be here with all of you. So thank you. I look forward to meeting you all in person. Just quickly, Sophie, I agree. I heard what you said, and my business partner always says perfection is the enemy of good. So I think about that all the time. And Sheila's story, I think I know what boss that was because we worked together. She was my first boss and taught me everything I know. And what I have to say or contribute is similar to what Sheila said, which is about fear. So if I were to simplify it, my number one career tip is to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I still am after 30 straight years of working because we're all fearful sometimes. And if people don't admit that, I don't think they're being honest. It's completely normal. I just got back from a 2-week business trip in the US. And I was full of dread and anxiety because I was worried. You're worried you're going to say something stupid or incorrect, but that's normal. So very often I find fear is simply a signal that you're about to grow. And growing is so important. The day you stop growing is the day you start dying. My mother taught me that one. She was an entrepreneur and stopped when she was about 40. And she said, don't do it. Don't make the mistake I made. So I work because I like to be engaged. I like to learn. I like to be curious. So just on that, and then I'll stop. But many of the best opportunities in my whole career came from doing things that felt slightly intimidating and still do. Reaching out to people, connecting to people I don't know or didn't know, or putting myself in rooms where I wasn't the obvious person. And again, I still screw up. I might say something incorrect, and that's okay. You learn, and it's in those uncomfortable moments is really where the real growth happens. And kind of in summary, what I've learned is the opportunities in your life are often created by that person, you, that's willing to step forward. Many people assume that they're being already taken, but they're not. They're often really not. So therefore, those opportunities they rarely appear. They're usually created. So go for it, ladies. Make it happen. Don't be scared. Don't be fearful. Go out and get them.
I absolutely love this one. I put it in the book. It's one of the box hero quotes in the book about, basically feel the fear and do it anyway. It's not fearing the fear, isn't it? It's just accept the fear and don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of the fear, because the fear is just the most normal. If you're living, then it's going to be there. And I just absolutely love that advice.
And when you get to the other side, you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, and then you grow, and then your confidence grows. So each time you do it, you grow more and more confidence. But you have to push through.
I also love that, so I remember somebody said this to me once, is there's such a fine line between fear and excitement.
Yeah, well said.
Sometimes we think we're feeling fear, but actually, if we really analyze it, look hard. There's a lot of excitement there, and
yeah, get your adrenaline going.
That helps you not be afraid of the fear. Before I go to thank you, Britt, before I go to my next very special guest, I want to chip in one of the people who can't be here today. She would love to be here, but she is actually in the US in a frantic book launch phase herself, and that is Helen Tupper. She is co-author of, amongst other things, the bestsellers The Squiggly Career, and most recently Learn Like a Lobster, which went to the top of the nonfiction bestseller list last week. And it was an instant answer when I asked her the best career advice she'd ever had. And she said, speak what you seek until you see what you said, is the quote. And what she means by that is, if it's something you want for yourself, for your career, get it out of your head, get it out of here and get it out there. Because once you get it out there, it does two things. Firstly, it builds your commitment to it because you've said it. by saying it out loud to yourself and to everyone else, you built your commitment to it and you are much, much more likely to do it. But secondly, it means other people can find ways to help you. If it's in your head and you haven't spoken it, no one knows to help you. As soon as you say it, as soon as you have that courage to say it, put yourself out there, suddenly the help will start coming. It may not come in that exact conversation, it may not come the next day, but over time, people know you've spoken it. They know, and they will find ways to help you. So I thought that was brilliant advice, and huge continued luck to Helen and Sarah with the magnificent Learn Like a Lobster.
Hey, Jill, I'm going to be naughty because I have to jump off to run to a meeting, as you know, quickly. I have one last quick tip. So really, and it's an obvious one. I write handwritten thank you letters all the time. I keep stationery in my bag, and it makes the biggest difference in a digital world. Write handwritten thank you to your clients, etc. Even if it's 2 lines, it goes a long, long way. Sorry, that was 2. It was
I
only.
love it. I love it. And I love it. And I know I will always cherish the book that you gave me with the little notes in it last year. I absolutely love that. Thank you, Britt. You slip away when you need to, but stay with us as long as you can. I'm going to go now to our next special guest. She is Rebecca Van Dyke, and she is the founder of Peer Suite, which is an incredible network for women. If you don't know about it already, please find out about it. She does absolutely incredible stuff. Hi, Rebecca. Thank you for being.
Hi, Jill.
Hello, please. I know you've got so much wisdom, and I have again got a ton of your wisdom in the book, in that knowing your value. That Rebecca is an absolute. If you need to know how to get a pay rise, Rebecca is your woman. Give us your biggest one, though, Rebecca. What's the one career tip that you'd like to share?
Well, first of all, Jill, thank you so much for having me here today alongside such an amazing group of women. I'm really delighted and honored to be here. So yes, as you said, you kindly referenced an article that I wrote about salary negotiation, knowing your worth. So I'm going to pick up on that topic. And one piece of advice that I just wish someone had told me earlier in my own career is that knowing your value and then communicating your value are 2 quite different things. And most of us as women tend to wait to be recognized. We wait till the end of the year. We hope our manager remembers everything that we've done, all the great work. And then it comes around to a pay conversation, and we tend to accept whatever we're given at the end of the year, which might be just some inflation-based pay rise. That happened to me in my career in banking. Latterly, I now know that I was significantly in the wrong arena of pay. But since then, I kind of corrected that for myself because I realized the work that you're doing isn't going to speak for itself, and you need to be speaking for it. In my most previous role, and this is what Jill kind of came across for this discussion around salary negotiation, I negotiated a 75% salary increase over the course of 2.5 years when I was a COO. And a lot of that comes down to knowing your own worth. So I do really understand why this happens for women. It's quite uncomfortable to talk about money. It's quite uncomfortable to talk about why we think we're so brilliant. And to quote Jill's first book, she talks about the umbrella, where women will sort of sit under the umbrella and accept and think that their work speaks for itself. They're not ready to shout about their accomplishments in the same way that men do. And men will tell us in the workplace and at home every great thing that they've done. So whether that's just, emptying the dishwasher, they're there above the umbrella shouting about the work that they've done. So my piece of advice to people is to start tracking your wins. Don't wait until review time to start having these conversations. Always keep a running document with projects that you've worked on, problems you've solved, and the results that you've delivered, and link everything back to the business impact that has had. And I think that's really critical. We can't expect our managers to remember everything, but also we probably won't remember everything at the end of the year. So keeping that running document helps you stay informed. And then, like I say, don't expect your manager to know everything. Don't assume they know your work, and definitely don't wait till the end of the year to have a conversation. Budget conversations start happening when I was a COO as early as August. So you want to be having those conversations about what your expectations are before that end of year period of time.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought up the umbrella as well, Rebecca, because I know you and I have talked about this a lot, and everyone who knows me knows how much I bang on about the umbrella theory, but it is so true. And I do think there are still, there is still a world full of women who believe that their work speaks for themselves. They're doing brilliant work. They are, and that somebody's noticing, and somebody's sitting there waiting to give the pay rise or the promotion or the job. And that importance of knowing that you're just under the umbrella. We're all under umbrellas as far as our bosses are concerned. It's actually, almost a bit arrogant of us to think that other people are watching us like this. And men generally much better at coming out from under that umbrella and making sure that their work is visible and valued. And I think your tips on how to do that are fantastic. And I know
He's so right. And at the end of the year, the dreaded performance review, you've got it all there. You're so right, Rebecca.
Yeah. Don't wait until the end of the year.
Yeah.
Do it through the year. Step up and sort of talk about our accomplishments. And as you said, Jill, the managers are so busy themselves. When I was managing several teams, you can't possibly know the intricacies of every piece of work that someone's doing. As much as you try to, you can't always know that. So I think it's about us advocating for ourselves and speaking for ourselves.
I think it's impossible to know it. I don't care how great a boss is. If you're relatively senior in a company, the boss above you has so much going on. They are not watching. Doing. I think when we're more junior, maybe, but you get to a point where it's just there's no way. And I always say, come out of the umbrella. 10% of your working time minimum, you should be coming out of the umbrella, making yourself visible with the boss. And I know, and especially now at my age, Rebecca, I can tell you, chances of me remembering all of the things I've done, zero. So if I was back now 15 years ago, I'd have that notebook you talk about. I'd be writing down every single blooming amazing thing that I'd done. So thank you so much for that tip. I'm going to go now to the incredible Jo Phillips. I'm just going to introduce you, Jo, as the woman behind the women, because I think that sums you up so brilliantly, and all of that incredible work that you do with women. Thank you for being here, and thank you for saying yes.
It was an absolute no-brainer. Whatever was in the diary was going to get shifted. It's Jill. I'm in. And then you look at the list of women that I get to then partake in this hour with, and I was just super overwhelmed by the invite. So thank you so much. I'm absolutely honoured to be here, and I mean that genuinely. So thank you.
Have you, my love.
Thank you. So I guess where I'm coming from is I'd like to give some practical and some tangible takeaways for anybody who might be listening. All the work I do is to work with women around the globe, and what we're looking at doing is either closing their pay gap, gaining promotions, or finding new roles within the corporate space. Last year alone, we closed pay gaps at an average 39% across the board, and all but one were promoted either internally or externally. I come from a corporate background, I come from a leadership space, and I also come from a place whereby I spent the best part of 3 decades not understanding or having the terminology for, or the academia for, or the words even to understand why life was different for me in a corporate space. Why were the expectations different? What was going on? What were these invisible barriers? I just didn't have them. And 5 years ago, and actually the one behind the women had kept me up for 15 years, I couldn't fall asleep at night without thinking, how can I make sure that other women don't have to go through what I go through? If I'm going through it, others must be. The bit whereby you sit in a meeting and somebody else self-promotes and you think, I do that before 10 o'clock on a Monday morning. That's a whole week's worth of work for you, but that for me is just on the list of to-dos. Or you hear somebody and they talk about an idea they've had, but actually it was originally your idea and you'd had that conversation with them and they've hijacked it. And what I'm certainly not looking to do is pit the genders against each other. I don't think that works. I don't think that helps us at all as we move forward from an educational perspective, or even to reduce the barriers. But I think certainly what I see is twofold. One, I see that women still are expected to behave in a specific way from a societal perspective. So, for example, and to Rebecca's point, we're expected to be modest, we're expected to be meek, If we advocate for ourselves, we are seen as boasting, we are seen as bragging, we're seen as pushy. And actually, advocating for yourself in the workplace is one of the key differentiators between being noticed or being ignored. It won't be anything to do with your talent, it'll be to do with whether or not people can hear and see and feel the impact that you're having. So, one of the first things I would say to anybody listening is really make sure that you are using the I as much as you're using the we pronoun when you talk about successes. Very often with the women I work with, we're very used to using we, us as a team. It was we that achieved this, it was our. And it will be, because no one person can achieve anything individually. But nonetheless, there will be an area, an aspect of value, an action, a behavior that you took that changed the course corrected potentially, and created the outcome. So be ready to talk about those things and be ready to talk about them in detail so that any room you walk in, people understand. I think the second, and I was reviewing my client list actually earlier on this year, and I think the second core denominator across all of our successes has been, without doubt, to identify sponsorship. Sponsorship is the political capital that any female needs within the corporate space. It is identifying an individual that will open doors for you, for rooms that you haven't yet been in. And actually what we want to do is marry the reputation along with the exposure. So we're in a position whereby other people are talking about you in rooms that you're not yet in. And that's where we see our successes. And so I guess in terms of my own experiences, I've absolutely come up against all of the challenges, whether it's a nominal pay review, whether it's not being promoted, whether it's not using my voice. I've kind of done it all. And so I guess what I wanted to do is really share with people that I think the two core and the main takeaways are: one is to always advocate for yourself, and two is to make absolutely sure that you've got that sponsorship internally within the organization, but also externally within the ecosystem, so that you really are in a position to be able to speed up your trajectory.
I love that, Jo. And I think, the one thing I would just add to that is I think advocating for yourself, it has to start, doesn't it, with really knowing your own value, believing in yourself, right? And actually recognizing that you are amazing. And one of the things that I always say to women is, okay, really ask yourself, what would not have happened if you hadn't been there? We're not saying it wasn't a team. We're not saying you're not part of the whole machinery. But what wouldn't, if you're really honest and you look inside your heart, there's something that would not have happened if you weren't there. It just wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have gone that way. It would have gone in a different direction. What is that? And those are the things that you need to be making sure that everybody knows about. And obviously then, of course we don't take credit for stuff that wasn't us, but that is core. And I think the other thing, and again, I talk about this all the time, is knowing our superpowers, truly knowing what our superpowers are. And the world is full still of women in successful careers who, when I ask them, what are your strengths? What are you really brilliant at? Where do you uniquely add value? If you were in a room, what would you be world champion at? Pretty much whatever room you're in. And there are far too few women who can answer that question. And that is a huge part of the work that I do, is helping women to find those superpowers, because until you know that, you take for granted the amazingness that you're bringing because it's obvious to you. So knowing that, and then that enables you to be able to advocate for yourself in a really compelling way that's truly grounded in that genuine, confident core of knowing that, I'm not good at everything, but you know what? I'm good at this. This is what I bring. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to chip in now with one from Viv Groskop. She's not here today. She's doing another event. She's got a big event, a How to Own the Room event of her own tonight. Viv is the author and host of How to Own the Room, among many other things. She's written a ton of brilliant books. She's written radio plays. She's phenomenal. And I asked her for her best tip, and she has quoted Marcel Dargy-Smith, who was editor of Cosmopolitan in the 1980s and 90s, with the quote, "Manage your morale." Simple as that. Manage your morale. Literally just every day checking in on yourself. How am I feeling? Where's my motivation? Do I feel good about myself? Mediocre about myself? Terrible about myself? High energy, low energy? Where am I on the scale? And how to manage that, rather than letting that control me, rather than just letting that be and letting that show up in a way I don't want it to necessarily, interactions with people I work with or people I work for, managing that morale. Know it and manage it. So I think that's fantastic advice. And speaking of editors of Cosmopolitan, we also got some brilliant advice to share with you from Lorraine Candy, who is an ex-editor of Cosmopolitan and also of Elle magazine. She's an author too. She contributed some fantastic tips to the How to Win at Work book as well. She's the co-host of Postcards from Midlife Now, and I love this one. This one really, really goes deep for me. She said to me, please share with everyone. Remember, it is statistically impossible for everyone to like you. So step away from that belief, just stick to your core values and you will be fine. And I just absolutely love that, because, you know, the reality is, if you're out in the world, if you're doing stuff, if you're raising your head above the umbrella or the parapet or whatever it is impossible that everyone's going to like you. And we all would love it, right? Wouldn't we? In theory, if everyone loved everything we did and everything we said and we didn't irritate one. I have to tell you, my friends, I learned at a very young age for myself that was not going to be the case. But it still really helps me to be reminded that, hey, Jill, it's not just you that everyone doesn't like. Everybody has people who don't like them and what they do, and you just got to keep doing it anyway. So thank you, Lorraine, for that fantastic tip. I'm going to go now to my next special guest, Florence Roland. She is author of The Persuasive Negotiator, and again, some fantastic contributions from her in the How to Win at Work book that you can read at length. But I've asked her here today. Hello, and thank you for being here. And please give us your number one. What's the best career advice you want to share today?
Well, thanks for having me, Jill, and to echo everyone else, just absolutely delighted to be part of this. It's such a great event and some really good advice coming out. One of the perils of coming so late in the day is I seem to have you've all done my bits of advice. It's killing me here. So I was going to talk about value and owning your own value, and that, you know, women don't value themselves enough when it comes to negotiation, and that is a really big thing. And what Joe and Rebecca and yourself, Jill, have said really echoes that we need to be better at advocating for ourselves. But in understanding our values, if we can't value ourselves, nobody else will. And when it comes to negotiating for our pay, if we don't have that belief in ourselves, then that's a big problem. So I'd reiterate, yeah, having that list of things to do and being super well prepared, having a plan or a strategy when you go into these meetings about your pay or a new job opportunity is really important. But since we've kind of covered all that, I'm going to give you a bit of advice that I loved from my father when I was much younger, starting out in this business. And I'd had a particularly bad experience with a client. And he just said to me, he said, don't let the bastards get you down. And that stuck with me for years. And it was couched in the fact that he believed in me. And he knew that it wasn't me that was doing something wrong. It was very much them. And I think having that belief that sometimes, doesn't matter what you do, people will judge you for it. So just do the best you can and go for it. And that's the same in negotiation as well. You have to be brave enough to put yourself out there and ask. No one's going to give you things. You have to ask for it.
I love that. And you know, you have taught me so much about negotiation and negotiation for yourself from your book and what you've shared with me. So thank you. But I especially love what you've just shared, because my dad used to say that. My dad used to say that, and it's so powerful, isn't it? It's made me a little bit emotional now. Thank you.
Yeah. You're here.
I hope she's arrived, because my next guest on the list is Harriet Wally Cohen. Harriet, are you here?
Hi, Jill. I'm absolutely
Hello,
here. It's been fantastic to listen to everyone who I managed to hear's tips, and congratulations and thank you for the amazing work that you do for women. Um, I want to start by sharing that 1% of men, according to research, 1% of men receive negative feedback in their formal performance reviews on their communication styles, and it is 66% of women. And the message I want to give everybody watching is that when you receive feedback, formally or informally, it's okay to question whether it's true. When you receive so-called constructive feedback, if it's something to do with something that could relate to negative gender stereotyping that the other person may or may not be aware of, push back. It's all right to call out the systems. It's all right. It's more than all right. I give everyone full permission to push back against systemic factors that are holding back your career because you are being judged through a lens that no man is going to be judged by. I remember I spent 10 years working in investments as a graduate. I remember receiving formal performance, reviews about the type of suits that I wore. And I can tell you that no man, with no graduate, no other man in the entire company ever really received, even the ones that came in and their suits were, and shirts were covered in stains and weren't ironed and all this, that kind of thing. And I was sometimes receiving feedback, or your skirt's a little bit too short, or you look wrong, and all this kind of thing. So I think push back against the systemic factors and where you might being unfairly pushed down that actually are nothing to do with you, and you don't have to accept some of the feedback that you receive that might be put down formally. And I also, through all of the many hundreds, if not thousands, of women that have been through my leadership programs and through my talks, is to remember who the bleep you are the minute you wake up in the morning, as you walk into the office. Don't allow your inner critic, don't allow your worries to get the better of you and influence your behavior as you go in. Don't walk into the office as an apology. Walk in as an absolute queen. And if that means, and this is something that I've coached lots of women to do, that you need to write a document that reminds you of who you are, your strengths, your achievements, everything that you bring to the table, your values, all of that, and then walk in as that woman, show up to every meeting as that woman. It will stop you from people pleasing, from accepting criticism that isn't yours, from holding yourself back, from not speaking up, from not challenging people who speak over you, all of those sorts of things. So I think those would be, I know you said one piece of advice, but it's International Women's Day and it's your launch. So bonus, let's have two pieces of advice.
They were all linked, and it's absolutely brilliant. And I always say to the women I coach, once they know their top 10 superpowers, once they know what's amazing about them, I say literally you should have them. They need to be in front of you every day, every situation. You always go back to them. If you feel wobbly, the answer will be in there. If you need strength, the answer will be only, hey, it's the year of the horse this year. Step into that power. I absolutely love that. I hope you saw how much love you're getting in this chat, Harriet. I hope you saw that. It's absolutely fantastic to see you here. I'm going to go now to another one of my partners in crime, Olga Cassidy. She's my partner on our Transform Women in Leadership program. In the Middle East. She's in Dubai right now, so extra special thanks, Olga, for taking the time for us today. I hope it's a bit of a distraction for you. Hello, Olga.
Hi, Jill, and hi, ladies, again. Thank you so much for having me here, and congratulations on the book. I cannot wait to read it, so we'll sign the copy for me once we meet. So, ladies, as I was listening to you, I've prepared one piece of advice, which I will share in a moment, but what emerged for me as a beginning towards my initial advice was through what you were all saying. And Rebecca Florence in particular mentioned value. So I wanted to talk about values, right? So be clear about your values, because you might enter one organization and one particular boss would have certain set of values which you would appreciate, and everything rolls as smooth as you wish for it to be. But then the crisis happens, whether it's the change management, whether it's the pandemic, whether it's whatever else is happening in the world, right? And during the crisis, you really can see what the lived values are of the organization and perhaps of your particular boss. And for me, I had two examples. I'm not going to go into details, but I had two examples where the organization changed the values and basically they were against my personal values. So I had to make a choice and just to decide to change the career, change the company. And moving to my initial advice, which I prepare, is from the perspective when women are changing jobs. I wanted to say that what's important is to go with the mindset to the interview, to interview the interviewer, right? So many of us typically go and think, oh, hey, I need this job, potentially desperate or really, please take me, right? But that's the wrong approach. And when you think of interviewing the interview approach, it shifts two things, right? One is the mindset. First of all, it's the mindset of two equals. So you're not desperate. It gives you confidence. Realize that you are valuable regardless of what situation you're in right now. So that would shift the body language for you, the tone of voice, and really gives that inner core of confidence. The second point is interview, right? Meaning that you need to prepare questions. So make sure that you do your research and you prepare well-researched strategic questions for this particular organization and this particular role, because that would help you create authority during the interview. So a personal example, that was about, I'd say 8 years ago when I interviewed for my last corporate role. And I was interviewing for a senior marketing leadership role. And the shift for me was from multiple brand single market portfolio to a single brand multiple markets portfolio. So that was quite a big shift. What I've done, I've listed all the relevant industry trends globally and regionally. I have researched more about competitors for this particular brand across the vast region. And I listed all the potential challenges of the role, assuming it's going to be the right fit for me and I'm going to be the right fit for them. With all this information, I've created a few powerful strategic questions that really shifted the dynamics of the conversation. So I'll just give you an example of the questions, just to make it not theoretical. So one of them was, how are you planning to respond to the emergent consumer well-being trends that haven't yet been addressed in your portfolio while competitor A is doing 1, 2, 3, right? Another question was around return on marketing investment, around the major communication initiative, which is the Gulfood here, a big convention in the industry. So let me tell you, when I asked those questions, I immediately remember the shift of energy. There was 3 interviewers and they all started talking to me like partner. They started answering questions. They started asking further questions to clarify certain insights. They were writing down insights that I had given to them. And within 1 month, I've been offered a job, which I have taken. And typically this role takes several months to decide an interview for. So
fantastic. That is fantastic advice, Olga. And I know how brilliant your preparation and your thinking through these things is. And I can absolutely, they had no chance. They had no chance of not hiring you when you went into that interview and interviewed them. I thank you, Olga. I am going to go now to the fabulous Karen Dobres. She is author of Pitch Invasion, which she wanted to call something else, beginning with a B instead. And she is possibly football's #1 feminist. Karen, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure it is. And I'm so excited about your new book, Jill, because the last book, I just want to show you how many, can you see all those little markers in that book? It's helped me so much. in football in particular. So when I was a director at Lewis FC, we were the first and only pro or semi-pro club in the world to equalize the playing budgets between men and women. So we paid the women players the same as the men effectively and gave them the same marketing, access to priority access to the pitch, etc., etc. But before I got involved, I'd not liked football and I'd known nothing about football, and I didn't realize how unwelcome I was to football. But I got involved, and eventually I joined the board at the football club, where often I was the only woman in the room. And so my advice is quite basic, and it's probably something that most of you already do, but silly me. I wasn't aware enough of my gender conditioning really to avoid what I did at my first board meeting. And when I went to the meeting, there were about 10 men around the table, and there was a big urn at the end of the table with stained coffee cups and teacups around, and tea bags and coffee and sugar and different milk and all of that kind of thing. And nobody had a cup in front of them. So I said, "Oh, I'm going to get a cup of tea. Would anyone like one?" And suddenly every man at that table put their hand up and told me what kind of, coffee with 2 sugars, please, a tea, but just don't let that tea bag stay in too long, etc., etc. And I basically took orders for all of these men's cups of tea and coffee, and then spent about 5 or 10 minutes making them and bringing them over. Not one of them offered to help, and missed the first agenda point of the board meeting. Now, I learned so much during that time, that 5 or 10 minutes while the urn was boiling. I was getting angrier and angrier inside myself, realizing what have I done? I've completely forgotten that I'm the only woman. Well, not forgotten, but I've gone by my gender conditioning really and played into a unhelpful female stereotype in a room full of men. And I've done what I've been trained to do since childhood, which is offered a cup of tea to the first person that walks through the door, and a sandwich if possible, at my house when I was young. But, so I was doing this thing that I'd been trained to do. But it was so inappropriate for, especially at a football club where we were changing the world through gender equality. But none of those men were aware of their conditioning, and I hadn't been in that moment aware of mine either. So I quickly learnt, and my advice is to stay away from the kettle if you're in a male bastion like football, where you can see very clearly what some of the problems with gender are. So that's my advice. But I guess there's another part of advice that goes with that. And I know that, and I quote in my book, Sinead O'Connor, who was working in the music industry, she said, "You're going to do your own head in if you don't try to be a man when you go to work." And we don't want to do that. We really want to be ourselves. But my advice is that just be part of yourself. Don't just be your whole self all the time. And I give this advice knowing that my previous profession was in counselling and therapy, where we're very much encouraged to be ourselves. But what we need to do is know ourselves and therefore choose which parts of ourselves should come to meetings, So my advice is stay away from the kettle and know yourself enough to choose which parts of yourself to bring along.
Exactly. It's like anything, isn't it? It's not about denying parts of yourself. It's just which parts are relevant to this context. I love that. Stay away from the kettle. It's not just in football, Karen. I think we all need to stay away from that kettle in our corporate meetings and others. Before I go to my final wonderful guest, I'm going to share one more tip from someone who can't be with us today. She's Christine Armstrong. She's the author of The Mother of All Jobs, a fantastic book for anyone who's a mother out there, and a speaker on the future of work. And I love this one. Here's what she says: take all the screw-ups and failures as insight into where you shouldn't be. Keep moving where and what you do until it feels like running down a hill. Thrilling, slightly out of control, and impossible to stop. I absolutely love that, Christine. It gives me tingles, that one. For me, this is another extremely cool way of talking about the superpowers. Find what you are brilliant at. Know what you are brilliant at. Know when you are in the flow. know when you are loving it and do that. Go to a place where you can do that, and you are going to be so much more successful. You're going to do things quicker, better, and that's how you're really going to impress everyone else. And frankly, that is how you're going to really enjoy yourself at work and in your life. I'm gonna go then to, this is a sad moment, my very last special guest of the day, which is Georgina Vaughan. She's my partner on the Career Women's Retreat, which we are running in June, which we are very, very excited about. Georgina, thank you so much for being here. I know you've got a lot of wisdom, my friend. Tell us what you want to share today.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. This has been fantastic and a privilege to be with such formidable women. I've written down so much. It's been a proper little coaching session this afternoon. So my piece of advice, actually it was touched on slightly by Florence with this, the importance of asking. So quite a few years ago now, when I was in my corporate career, my boss had decided that he was moving on. And he came to me and he said, is there a reason why you haven't stuck your hand up to take my job? And I said, well, I kind of assumed that I would probably get the job because I've done really well and I've always been a high achiever. And, I assumed I would have been recognized for that and given the role. And he said to me, look, they want you to ask for it. And if you don't go and ask for this job, you're not going to get it. And they're going to start interviewing external candidates. And it was just the biggest aha moment for me, because without that, I wouldn't have asked for the job. I wouldn't have got the job. I would have sat there wondering, well, why didn't I get the job? Why has somebody else come in over me? And so I went and I asked for it and I got it. And I took that advice with me then throughout the rest of my career, which was I was always the one pushing, asking, and putting myself out there, even though it felt uncomfortable at times to have that conversation. So for me, that was the best piece of advice. It came from a man who was still really, really good friends with today. And it was priceless, actually.
It's brilliant advice, Georgia. And I can tell everyone from knowing you, you have such a fantastic way of asking, which is really nice and in no way irritating. And I've learned so much from you about how you do that. But you absolutely do. You always ask, and you are so right. And if I think back over my life, less so recently, but for early part of my career, I definitely did not ask enough, and I assumed I would get so wrong. So it's brilliant career tip. Now, everyone, we are close to the end. I did have another career tip that I was going to share with you, but we've run out of time. So you want the more career tips, you're gonna just have to get the book. But there are tons in there. There are tons in there from me, and a lot from the people you've heard from today as well, and everything, all the things that you are facing. There is advice and there are exercises to help you overcome them and basically coach yourself through it. I want to thank you all for being here. I hope you did get some How to Win at Work gold from our special guest. This was our International Women's Day gift to you. So I hope that you did get some gifts in there. I want to thank all of my special guests. You are wonderful. Thank you for sharing your career wisdom and your time so generously with everyone. My goal is very simple. My goal is that one day you will all be one of the women in a room of leaders that is 50% women. And I hope that this session has helped you with something to get you there. I hope that this book will help you. Have a great rest of day. And please do keep in touch. You know where I am. You know where we are. Thank you all so much for joining.
Happy International Women's Day.
Yay.
Absolutely.